I was mutilated when I was less than a year old.
I was 13 at that time. The Lord did all, and that was it. I was not given anything. I started bleeding.
What is
the benefit of this marriage?
It's an aspect of our culture.
Just state in Yoruba land, the girls are mutilated when they're very young.
Female genital mutilation comprises all procedures that involve altering or injuring the female genitalia for non-medical reasons and is recognized internationally as a violation of the human rights of girls and women. The history of FGM, according to some researchers, dates back to Egypt in the 5th century. A Greek historian and geographer in the 2nd century reported that a group along the eastern coast of the Red Sea cut their women in Egyptian style, and that another group cut off in infancy with razors the whole portion that others circumcised. Today, at least 200 million girls and women alive have had their genitals mutilated, suffering one of the most inhuman acts of gender-based violence in the world. Of these 200 million, at least 20 million are said to be in Nigeria. This means 1 in every 10 FGM victims is in Nigeria. UNICEF projects that at the current rate, 68 million girls worldwide are likely to be cut between 2015 and 2030 in the 30 countries located mainly in Africa, Middle East, and Asia, where this practice is endemic. The zeal to find out why the practice is still prevalent in areas like Ibadan Northeast, Ibadan North, Akinyele, and Afiju local government areas of the state, according to Value Reorientation for Community Enhancement, propelled us to take a trip to Shasha community, located in Akinyele local government area. Giving us a warm welcome to the community was Mrs. Comfort Oyetunde, who later invited her husband, Mr. Moses Oyetunde, to speak to us on their perception of the practice.
Tó fi wúlò ní wípé tá bá dá abẹ́ fún obìnrin ẹ̀ ń bá dàgbà díẹ̀ kó tó dábẹ́ bí irú àwa tá tí a máa yẹ̀ wò pé tí a kọlà àbí a má kọlà o tá bá ti mọ̀ gbà tó yẹ tá ti kọlà téèyàn bá dábẹ́ èyí tá kan bẹ lójú ara obìnrin yìí máa họ jẹ ni kò ní jọ́ mo sùn yìí sì ní máa tí ì ṣe pẹlẹbẹ ní ọ̀lẹ̀ mọ́ wọn tó lọ ṣe fún mi mo ṣe fún ẹ obìnrin mẹ́ta obìnrin mi ọkọ méjì mo ti ṣe fún èmi ṣe fún ọmọ mi o.
Yàtọ̀ sí kòkòrò tó máa ń pààyàn kí làwọn àǹfààní tó ti ṣe fún àwọn obìnrin.
Yóò máa yọ wọ́n lẹ́nu ni ó lè ṣèdíwọ́ fún yàn bó bá ti pọ̀ wọlé ọkọ ó lè ṣèdíwọ́ fún abẹ olóòlà ni wọ́n ní lọ́tọ̀ àwọn ní wọ́n lóògùn tí ó bù sí bí wọ́n bá dábẹ́ fóbẹ̀ tí wọ́n dá fọ́kùnrin oògùn tẹ́ máa lò sí tí okòwò èèsàn bọ́sọ̀ jọ́ǹbẹ́hùn alábẹ́dé là á pè ó gborí bí gbogbo yóò fọ́n ní tẹ́ máa fi sókò tí èèsàn wọ́n bá sobìn tẹ́ máa kán sí lára òfin náà kan yóò fún tábìlẹ́tì tá a lò yóò sọ fún àárẹ̀ rà kẹ́míìsì.
ṣé ẹ rí tóbi bí wọ́n ṣe sọ báwọn bàbá ìyá wa gbogbo ní ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ sọ wọ́n ní ọmọ ò gbọ́dọ̀ forí kan kẹ́ni bí wọ́n bá lóyún tí wọ́n ó bímọ pé wọ́n máa bá ń bọ̀ kó forí kan nítorí yẹ kí wọ́n dákú òun so yóò máa dá padà bí wọ́n ṣe pa nítàn fáwa wọ́n ní yóò máa dá padà wọ́n ní yóò máa dá padà kòkòrò yẹn yóò pé kò dáa kó wà lára so abẹ́rẹ́ òsì yìí sọ̀nà rẹ̀.
On whether they knew that the practice had been banned by the federal government, the couple had this to say. ìjọba wọn fẹ́ kí ìdábẹ́ ìkó.
Àwọn ń wí tí wọ́n pé ó yẹ kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n àgbàlagbà tó ní ìrírí tí a bá pé kí ní ẹjọ́ for example fún àpẹẹrẹ tí àwọn bàbá wa àwọn ìyá wa tí wọ́n bá pè léèwọ̀ tí èèyàn bá da kọjá kódà à ń gbé àwọn ẹ̀fọ́ kan à ń pè ní gbọ̀rọ̀ tóbìnrin bá lóyún pé yẹdi sí ó kò tí ì yẹ ẹmú dáadáa ẹmú tákàdá ẹmú gègé tóbìnrin bá lóyún tí wọ́n bá ń jẹ gbọ̀rọ̀ tó bá bọ̀ lẹ́fọ̀ọ́ tí bá ń jẹ tó bá bímọ gbogbo ìgbà lọ́mọ wọn máa dákú tí wọ́n máa dákú tí wọ́n máa yọwọ́ yẹn pé bá a bá dágbọ̀rọ̀ láàárọ̀ bá a bá dalẹ̀ àtọ̀dá.
Typically carried out by traditional circumciser using a blade, FGM is conducted from days after birth to puberty and beyond. In half the countries for which national figures are available, most girls are cut before the age of 5. An FGM survivor, Ayodeji Bello, found out she had been mutilated before she clocked 1 after attending a seminar creating awareness on FGM.
So I was mutilated when I was less than a year old. Yes, I was a baby when I was mutilated, so I didn't feel the instant pain, although my mommy told me about how I was running temperature, about the cut and all, but I can't remember, of course. So my journey concerning FGM started when I attended a conference. I'd always known about female genital mutilation, but I wasn't sure if I was caught. So I attended this conference where they told me about FGM, where we talked about FGM, and then they showed pictures of proper vagina and pictures of vaginas that were cut. And I was like, okay. And then some of the participants ran into the toilet. So I went to check. I'm like, okay, mine doesn't look okay. So I went home then and I asked my mom, was I caught? And then she told me yes, that I was caught. That was my grandmother. She was trying to explain the family rights and a couple of things that surrounded how she circumcised me, even though she knew something was wrong about it. I was devastated for a long time, and at least I got to know where some of my challenges were coming from in terms of relationship with the opposite sex and all of that. So, and that was how I continued my campaign. Okay, so I had a cause to intensify the campaign, and that's why I've been campaigning against female genital mutilation, because of some of the psychological experiences I've been having. Okay, how you don't want to think about sex, how sex can be painful, how you just don't feel confident at times. Okay, it's just like you have a scar on your face, or you have just imagine if I had a cut here or something, and people are like, look at, so because it is hidden, people don't know what you go through. So, and that's why every opportunity to campaign against female genital mutilation, I do not take it for granted. So FGM is bad.
The recent multiple indicator cluster survey shows some decline in the incidence of FGM in Nigeria. 18.4% of women aged 15 to 49 years now undergo FGM, a decrease from 27% in 2011. In 2018, more than 309 communities publicly declared abandonment of the practice, 21 of them in Oyo State. Despite this decline, millions of girls and women are still faced with the scourge of genital mutilation every year in Nigeria. The United Nations International Children Emergency Fund, UNICEF, in December 2018, revealed that 6 out of 10 women between ages 15 and 49 in Oyo State are victims of genital mutilation, making Oyo State the 5th highest in Nigeria. Another survivor, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, shared the painful experience of how she was mutilated by her grandmother at the age of 13.
So I was 13 at that time, and it was in our family house, and by my grandmothers and the grandmothers. I was 13. So it's like I already know, because when you start your menstruation, like they'll kill a chicken for you. After killing the chicken, then you get mutilated. But at that time, I wasn't aware of the implications. I don't even know what it means. What I was told was, once you are mutilated, it means that you'll be able to have a baby. That day, it was my mom just said, I can't go to school today because she wants to take me to the family house. And I was like, oh, why am I not going to school? It's Tuesday. And she was like, I'll go to school maybe on Wednesday, that I should just follow out to the family house. I should drop me there. And we went to the family house. She dropped me at the family house, and all of a sudden my grandma called me inside, and she was like, I should not get scared, that now that I've started menstruation, it means that I am a woman now, and it's the right thing to do, that you know what they did for my sister the last time, that they are going to do the same for me. So I remember when my sister started menstruating, they did the same thing for her. So, but she locked the door. She called my auntie. My auntie was around, and they locked the door, and that was it. I was not given any injection to not feel pain. I was not given anything. I started bleeding. They gave me spirit and all of that. So afterwards, it was anytime I had to go to school, I just feel shy. I don't know. I wanted to ask my mates if they do the same thing, but then it's privacy, so I didn't talk to anybody. My dad did not get to know, so it's just among my mom, the grandmothers, and I. Because my mom said, once I'm giving birth and my baby's head touched the clitoris, that I will not be able to have a baby, that all my baby will die. So it's important that the clitoris is cut.
She, however, said she wants the practice to stop, but her parents feel otherwise.
I mean, the trauma, like, it's not something I can explain, because I was 13 years at that time. So I was just curious. I wanted to know why. I don't have access to a smartphone at that time, so I don't, and there wasn't a teacher I could actually trust, so I didn't bother to ask anybody about it. I just, till the injury healed and I felt okay. But now that I know about it, I just feel like, God, my rights has been violated, and I have to start educating them and all that. So by the time my niece started menstruating, it wasn't done for her, because we're already aware of it. And I think my mom's family friends still do it. I mean, to their youngest daughter. And even when I told her about the laws that are existing on female genital mutilation, she was still like, laws are laws, that what is good for their daughter is good for their daughter.
Why is the practice of FGM still rampant in Oyo State, despite several advocacy and sensitization being done? The State Director, National Orientation Agency, Oyo State Directorate, Mrs. Dolapo Dosumu, explains.
Well, first of all, I have to admit that Oyo State is a very cultural state. And you know, when you try to define culture, it will mean the way of life of a people. What do they believe? Their norms, their practice, their way of life, in which female genital mutilation is one of them. It is just an aspect of our culture. And that's why I'm saying that it's coming from the background of our culture, because that particular practice is a deep-rooted cultural practice. That is why it is being still practiced in Oyo State.
She also profiled a way out of the menace.
Number one, you need to convince them that this is a harmful practice. You need to convince them why they should not do it. And let them see that if they drop this practice, they don't lose anything.
Although mutilated at the age of 10, Mrs. Adedapo Kuburat believes that the practice had no effect on her and her daughter, who has also been mutilated.
Wọ́n ṣe fẹ́ mi o, ẹ rí pé mo kọlà, wọ́n ṣe fún mi, abẹ tí wọ́n fi dábẹ́ mi náà ni wọ́n fi kọlà fún mi. So ṣe wá mọ̀ wípé táyé àtijọ́ ó ti yàtọ̀ sí táyé ìsìn. Nígbà tí èmi tí wọ́n ṣe tọ̀dọ̀ mi kò sí nǹkan kan, mo ti dàgbà gan kí wọ́n tó ṣe, because mo ti tó ọmọ bí ọmọ 10 years. Because mo jẹ́ nìkan tí confusion máa ń mú nígbà tí mo wà kékeré, wọn bá ti kọlà fún mi gan, but nítorí confusion tó ń ṣe mí iná fi kọlà fún mi, wípé tí wọ́n bá ti kọlà fún mi confusion yìí ò ní ṣe mí mọ́. Ọ̀ṣẹ́ mọ̀ ayé ìgbà yẹn ṣe mọ̀ ó máa ní nǹkan táwọn àgbàlagbà lè lò tí ò ní jẹ́ kó ṣe nǹkan kan fáwa, àwa tá a dẹ̀ wà ní ìsìn tó ń ṣe kinní wọ́n lè mọ̀ọ́mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀ kó ṣe nǹkan kan fèmí.
ṣe fún àwọn ọmọ yìí.
Ọmọ mi obìnrin kan ṣoṣo tí mo bí a ṣe fún kò dẹ̀ sí nǹkan kan tó ṣe. Irọ́ o àwọn èmi gan kọ́ ni mo ṣe o, mo gbé lọ sí Kọ̀bọ́mọjẹ́ because ọmọ Ìbàdàn lè ní, so Kọ̀bọ́mọjẹ́ dẹ̀ kọ̀ mọ́ wípé kán máa ṣe mí wípé ibẹ̀ ni àwọn olólà tó wà ní Ìbàdàn wà.
We then proceeded to Kobomoje, a remote area in Ibadan, popularly known for the practice, where we met Mr. Lukman Adedoja Alabede, who told us how and why the procedure is done.
Olóòlà lẹni àkọ́kọ́ tí kọ́kọ́ dìde nílẹ̀ tí ó dábẹ́. Ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀tọ̀ lájúdé làwọn doctors náà rí di sẹ́yìn. Ibi tí wọ́n fi sísọ́ọ̀sì gé okó ọmọ. Sísọ́ọ̀sì ò ṣeé gèdè obìnrin. Wọ́n á kàn gé clitoris ẹ̀ dànù. Ní tí ó sì dáa torí àwọn iṣan kan bẹ níbẹ̀ tí nǹkan kan ò gbọ́dọ̀ kàn. Bọ́lọ̀ wọn bá ṣe fi awọ bo tọkùnrin tó fi bò láti rí. Iná ló fi awọ bo tóbìnrin náà tó fi bò láti rí. Awọ yẹn là ń sí kúrò. Ṣùgbọ́n ní method and technologies tẹ́ fi remove àwọn nǹkan yẹn tá a bá fẹ́ kọlà fọmọ ní ká lọ́mọ lẹ gbé wá nísìn á kì glove bọ̀wọ́ so ti yé yín á sterilize abẹ́ wa so ti yé yín irú kíní powder tí mo ní àfihàn sójú ẹ̀jẹ̀ tó bá yọ pa kòkòrò bẹ̀ aleraisa iodine so ti yé yín tá a bá ti kán iodine sí ojú abẹ́ á sì mú powder náà á kù sí tí wọ́n pè méjèèjì ọ̀ràn ara wọn lọ́wọ́ á sì bá di ọba tán.
wọ́n á ní obìnrin tán bá dábẹ́ fún pé ó máa ń léwu fún lọ́jọ́ ọ̀la pé kì í jẹ́ kó gbádùn ìbálòpọ̀ láàrin ọkùnrin.
Allahu Akbar.
Ṣé lóòótọ́ ni bàbá?
Ó ń yẹ̀yẹ́ ni ẹ́.
Ní táwa wà fún bàbá.
Oníyẹ̀yẹ́ ayé òun ọ̀run ni ẹ́. Tí wọ́n bá tẹ́rí téèyàn bá mọ nǹkan ṣe ká mọ̀ pé ọ̀mọ́ ṣe èwo làbúrò tó máa tánìṣì méjì àwọn tó mọ̀ ṣe. Tí obìnrin tí ó bá dábẹ́ yóò ṣèṣekúṣe. Ìṣekúṣe rẹ̀ ó le ju ẹni tó dábẹ́ lọ. Ẹni tó dábẹ́ ojú nìṣe rẹ̀ ọ wà ṣùgbọ́n tí ó dábẹ́ gbogbo ara rẹ̀ nìṣe rẹ̀ ọ wà tó wá wọ pàǹtì lásán tó bá rin orí ẹ̀ orin ìdí ẹ̀ tó bá ti ń gbẹ́sẹ̀ báyìí ni ó máa rìn ara rẹ̀ ó máa move tí obìnrin ó bá sì dábẹ́ sẹ́rí clitoris yẹn yóò máa gùn wá ta yóò gùn débi wípé yóò rí bí nǹkan ọmọkùnrin.
He suggested a roundtable discussion between the federal government and the traditional practitioners.
Káwọn ìjọba wa kí wọ́n má ṣe sojú mi dá kí wọ́n má pe àwọn olólà tí wọ́n bá ti pẹ́ díẹ̀ kìí ṣe pé kí wọ́n má ṣe mọ́ ni ọ̀nà àbáyọ mi di new technology tó yẹ kí wọ́n máa lò ní kí wọ́n jọ dúró kí wọ́n yá àfikún lókun ní kìí ṣe pé kí wọ́n pe má ṣe má no kìí ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀.
In Costly's case, she discovered she had been mutilated at 8 months after confronting her mother and grandmother.
I gained admission into university and medicine and surgery, and we were really lectured on the procedure, the side effects, why the medicalization should not be carried out, the legal perspective of it and all that. So I still, even despite the fact that they told us so many things about it, I still did not believe that I could be a victim. So I decided to travel to where my parents are in Oyo State, and I got home. Thank God, on getting home, I met my grandmother from the paternal side, and I sat my mother and the grandmother down, and I told them that I have a serious discussion, that I want to have a serious discussion with them. So they lent me their ears, and I asked them straight away that did they circumcise me? My mother was shocked. She wanted to enter the ground, and she felt like running away. She was shocked. So she didn't want to answer me at first. I asked her again, and then she answered me with a question that why do I want to know? I said I want to know because I needed a response to that question first, and then I would further explain to her. She told me that yes, I was circumcised, and then she pointed accusing finger immediately to my grandmother. So it's like both of them were acting drama. I still did not believe it. I said what I meant was that Mama shared dabe for me. She fi abe, she fi gay private parts me. And then she said yes, that they did it for me. At that point, I felt the whole world was actually against me. That why me? And before then, I'd noticed a little bit of abnormality on my private part, but I still feel maybe it's just something congenital that maybe it's not artificially done. But so at that point, those pictures began to cross my mind. The things that I've seen, the complications that I've heard of, those that I've witnessed firsthand, and tears started rolling down my face. And then both of them, my mother and the grandmother, they started begging me that they are sorry, they don't know the procedure was bad as at then, nobody was saying anything about it, and then they believed that if they don't do it for me, I may not be able to give birth. Personally, the complication for me, I'm actually very scared, and I must be sincere. I'm actually very scared. I don't know, because the type that was done for me is actually type 1. So I'm preempting the complications like sexual dysfunction, all those complications. I'm preempting it, and I must say that even deep inside me, I'm still not happy. So
being a medical doctor has opened her eyes to the damage the practice has caused her and made her an advocate for the eradication of the practice.
Having witnessed some of the complications firsthand as a medical student, we, together with some of my colleagues, we started a strong campaign against the practice.
A primary health nurse and developmental psychologist, Patricia Abokede, outlined the effect of FGM on the girl child, noting that the experience of FGM increases the short and long-term health and psychological risks to women and girls and is totally unacceptable.
The psychological effect or sexual slipback is that the clitoris, the kind of associated with the female penile gland now, or penis. So it's the most sensitive part of the female genitalia, and when it is removed, the chances that the woman may not enjoy sexual intercourse, even in marriage, is high. So the fact that they want to reduce the promiscuity of women may even be increased, because when a woman cannot enjoy sexual intercourse with a man, she may assume, oh, this man is not good enough. She may keep checking on different men, and it may lead to promiscuity. So that's a long-term psychological effect. Then it can even lead to infection that can lead to infertility in the future. Like I said septicemia, I said HIV, I said other infections that I may not be able to mention. Now, if an infection, if the vagina is the clitoris or the genitalia it has a narrow passage, which is the vagina, to the female secondary sexual organ, that is the uterus and other parts. So infection can progress from the genitalia to the uterus, to the fallopian tube and other parts. So it's the chances that a woman can be infected, even unnoticed infection, that can lead to other consequences in life, like infertility. It could happen. So there's no health benefit.
Traditional rulers and community leaders take varying positions with regards to FGM. Some promote it, some consider it irrelevant, while others contribute to its elimination. Evangelist John Oyeleke, a community leader at the Shasha Community Development Board, who also serves as a traditional midwife, disclosed the risks involved in mutilating the girl child.
Nípa ká máa dábẹ́ fún ọmọ torí gbogbo àwọn nǹkan tí wọ́n ń lò bí àwọn àfi alágbẹ̀dẹ rọ abẹ tí alágbẹ̀dẹ wọ́n lè ṣàlòkù rin wọ́n á jóná wọ́n á sún wọ́n á pọ́n tí ẹ sì dáadáa ṣùgbọ́n bí tí wọ́n bá lò fún ọmọ àkọ́kọ́ wọ́n á jù sínú omi wọ́n á pé wọ́n á lọ ra ìgbẹ́ nǹkan tí ò dá ń bẹ̀ ni pé ó lè fà kẹ́lòmí ọmọ rọ̀ mọ́ bí ó lè fà kí ilé ọmọ ẹlòmíì kó ti bàjẹ́ ó lè fà kí ẹlòmíì kọjá wípé gbogbo ohun tá à ń pè ní gbogbo ọjọ́ tọ́dún ìparí lẹ́lòmíì ọmọ ṣe nǹkan obìnrin tí obìnrin máa ń ṣe nígbà torí pé àwọn nǹkan tó yẹ kó di ojú ara rẹ̀ mú fákòókò kan kó sọ́ọ́lẹ̀ lákòókò kan àwọn nǹkan yẹn wọ́n ti gé kúrò.
Another community leader, Isiaka Zakariao, says the practice is absolutely condemnable.
Tí wọ́n ń ṣe wọn ọmọ kò dáa ni ẹ bá mọ̀ pé ọ̀dà wọn ò ní ṣe táwọn máa ṣe náà ni pé a máa pariwo bí ẹ ṣe jẹ́ lẹ́sẹ̀ rédíò yìí ní ìsìn ẹ máa bá ní kéde rẹ̀ gbogbo ayé náà fi mọ̀ pé táwọn ń ṣe ọ̀bá lánàá mu.
Speaking on the different classifications of FGM, a gynecologist, Dr. Michael Agbaje, explained the danger involved in the practice, noting that it should be stopped.
The complications of female genital mutilation can be immediate or delayed. That's the long-term complications. Is that you have women who become frigid because of the experience. A lot of times you could have the girls having this procedure done when they're, allow me to put it wise, they're a bit older, so they can relieve the procedure that was carried out on them. So in some patients, yes, you could have some of these complications, which is what I can describe as post-traumatic stress disorder. She remembers that procedure, so each time she has a procedure that involves her genitalia, she relieves that trauma and becomes a bit frigid, a bit uneasy, very anxious when it comes to the procedures, right? But in terms of any other surgical procedure, if it involves an abdominal pelvic procedure, for instance, yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder may manifest in so many other ways. It may not just be when she has to be examined in terms of her genitalia.
He also reacted to the United Nations Population Fund statistics showing that 13% of women, about 1 out of every 10, who have been genitally mutilated in Nigeria were caught by medical professionals, while explaining that the practice has absolutely no benefits.
It is not a proper thing for healthcare workers to do. You have certain communities where the incidence of female genital mutilation is quite high. There's some environments, even here in Oyo State, where they've described it as almost about 60 to 70% of the female children undergo female genital mutilation. So I guess the mindset of some people back then was that if it's carried out by healthcare workers, it could reduce the complications arising.
In commemoration of the 2019 International Day of the Girl Child, our program on Impact Business Radio 92.5 FM, Real Talk, focused on the societal ills the girl child in Nigeria is subjected to. We had the family doctor and the coordinator of Child Protection Network, Oyo State, Dr. Ebulomo Walker, discuss the risks of FGM.
Yes, psychological effects. It starts right from where it is being done, when it is being done. That terror and pain is a big trauma. Terror and pain for any baby, for any girl child. When you see about 4 people just grabbing you, and so that's one of the things, and it may make people to misbehave. It may make them to maladjust later in life. So that's from the onset. But also, when a child or a girl has been mutilated, in some instances, like I tell you, they sew the thing together so that there's just a tiny opening. That tiny opening will allow menstruum to come out. In some instances,
what do you mean by menstruum?
Menstruum is menstrual flow.
Oh,
the blood every month. Because it needs to come out. So you make a tiny opening. Many times the opening gets narrower, and so the blood does not come out. So that every month, that pain, it is many times it will accumulate there, become solidified. That pain also gives them a sort of monthly depression. That's anxiety, that this pain is coming again, this thing is coming again. And then they can be depressed. Once they know that things have been removed from them, or when they are married and they don't want sex with anybody because they are just put off sex because some people have tampered with their external genitalia. Many of them, like I said, even the husband, they don't have the urge to have sex with their husbands.
A caller, Popola, identified tradition and religion as the root cause of FGM. He proffered education as the way out.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, this is Popola from Oregon.
All right, please go ahead with your comment.
I work on FGM, and I discovered that heritage religion are those factors that cause the privilege, especially in the rural area. And some people believe that if they don't do it, they may have the problem of infertility. So my own contribution is that children, most especially the girls, should be well educated on this.
Another caller, Mrs. Oni, corroborated Popola's opinion.
Right, please speak up, Mrs. Oni.
I want to say, because like what the other caller just said, we need to educate these young girls, because the young girls of today will become mothers of tomorrow. So if we can, actually educate them, let them know what it takes, what it is all about, they have prepared their mind. And since we have prepared their mind, when they become mothers or they see other mothers, they can educate them. So in so doing, it will be faster for people to get to understand what we are really talking about this month.
In July 2018, the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, produced the report intensifying global effort for the elimination of female genital mutilation. It states that efforts to end these practices should also target the groups of women and girls who are most at risk, in particular those who face multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, including refugee and migrant women, women living in rural and remote communities, and young girls, so as to leave no one behind. To promote the elimination of FGM, coordinated and systematic efforts are needed, and they must engage whole communities and focus on human rights and gender equality. These efforts should emphasize societal dialogue and the enabling of communities to act collectively to end this harmful practice. They must also address the sexual and reproductive health needs of women and girls who suffer from its consequences. Political commitment from governments and policymakers is needed to translate their efforts into concrete actions at the national and grassroots level to reach the goal of zero tolerance to female genital mutilation by 2030. In February 2019, a 37-year-old Ugandan woman who mutilated her 3-year-old daughter became the first person in the UK to be prosecuted for female genital mutilation. So far, this research has shown that there are a lot of misconceptions that need to be corrected as regards female genital mutilation, and the crime needs to be backed with more stringent consequences. With the campaign of the National Orientation Agency, the Oyo State Child Protection Network, One Life Initiative, UNICEF, and other advocacy groups against the practice, it is hoped that FGM will be stopped so that girls and women in the areas where the practice is still prevalent will no longer be subjected to the unwholesome ritual.
The sensitization must therefore continue from parents to guardians, legal practitioners to healthcare providers, religious and traditional rulers, one individual, one community, one day at a time, till we completely eradicate female genital mutilation in Oyo State and everywhere in the world where women and girls are still being genitally mutilated.